Ukraine has scored a major battlefield win in the east. In Kupiansk, drones from its unit blowing up two of Russia's most prized thermobaric rocket launchers. The launchers, in fact, the strike not only took out rare and powerful weapons, but also highlighted just how vulnerable Russia's frontline assets really have become to Ukraine's expanding drone warfare. According to Ukrainian media, Ukrainian forces destroyed two Russian systems, both in Kharkiv region. The weapon system was reportedly struck with explosive drones. According to Ukraine's drone regiment, the regiment released footage on YouTube on Monday, in fact, showing first-person view drones targeting the launchers in the Kupiansk sector. The video appears to show two separate strikes, one hitting a stationary MLRS, another hitting the same type of system on the move, possibly as Russian troops attempted to flee the attack. The Kiev Independent calling the Russian system a long-range artillery weapon that fires unguided rockets loaded with thermobaric warheads. And those warheads create huge blasts, sucking up the oxygen and creating intense pressure. In fact, they are designed to devastate people across an area. Any fire that they cause is a secondary effect. Russian forces use the system to bombard Ukrainian positions as well as civilian areas with these thermobaric rockets that are capable of leveling fortifications and devastating entire neighborhoods. Dubbed a legend by Russian war reporters, it fires salvos of 24 unguided rockets, each weighing more than 200 kilograms. The rockets disperse a flammable aerosol before detonation, creating a massive pressure drop that can rupture internal organs and also cause instant death. The system is designed to destroy lightly armed vehicles, enemy personnel in open terrain, and defensive strongholds, depending on configuration. Its cost is estimated between $6.5 million and $15 million. Now, this is not the first time Ukraine drone units have destroyed Russia's prized war equipment. In June as well, Ukraine's Phoenix drone unit destroyed a Russian system along with a tank, a robotic vehicle, and several soldiers in the Kharkiv region. And then in early September 2024, Ukraine's 24th Separate Mechanized Brigade took out another near Chasiv Yar in Donetsk while it was actively firing the rockets. FPV drone footage showed the system launching two projectiles before being hit repeatedly and coming to a halt as smoke rose around it. Ukraine's repeated strikes on Russia's rocket launchers showing just why drones are becoming a game changer on the battlefield. These powerful launchers are some of Russia's most feared weapons, capable of devastating troops with fire and pressure blasts. But their size and light armor also making them vulnerable, and Ukraine has learned to exploit that with precision drone strikes as well. Each time one is destroyed, it not only reduces Russia's firepower, it also sends out a message that even the most advanced, heavily armed systems are not safe from modern, agile tactics. And for Ukraine, these victories are more than just symbolic. They tilt the balance, protect towns and soldiers, and also show that innovation can outmatch raw firepower. At the United Nations, developing nations are calling out the world's wealthiest countries for falling short on climate promises. Leaders from the island nations to African states warning that rising seas, droughts, deforestation are forcing communities to flee, and that the billions pledged in climate finance are nowhere near enough. From the Pacific to Africa, these countries are saying it is time for the richer countries, historically responsible for the most greenhouse gas emissions, to step up and fund the fight against climate change. Wealthy countries have struggled to keep up with their climate finance promises. Funding finally reached $100 billion a year, the amount agreed back in 2009, but only in 2022, 2 years late. Last year, at a UN climate summit, leaders pledged to provide $300 billion a year to developing countries by 2035. But many of those nations say that it's still nowhere near enough, and experts are estimating they will need at least $1 trillion a year by the end of the decade just to cope with the effects of climate change. And leaders say rich nations, the ones that historically caused the crisis, need to step up. Fiji's Prime Minister has put it rather bluntly, quoting, "Those who shoulder the blame must foot the bill." Climate change, in fact, is already forcing people to flee. Ghana's president told the assembly that many migrants are climate refugees, displaced as deserts spread and villages become unlivable. Somalia's president warning that his country is forced to make impossible financial trade-offs, limiting investments in resilience and development. Extreme droughts, floods, rising sea levels hitting livelihoods and displacing families, and around 10% of the developing nations' budgets going just to respond to climate change. But some countries are meeting their commitments. Germany, for instance, provided a record 11.8 billion euros in 2024, but leaders of small island nations like Tuvalu, Madagascar are calling for funding to reach those who need it the most and with fewer obstacles. Even major emitters are under scrutiny. China saying it would cut emissions by 7 to 10% by 2035. A pledge that drew criticism from the EU, which called it far short of what's required. Palau's president, meanwhile, urging world leaders to see the crisis firsthand. I'm quoting, "If the world is serious about 1.5 degrees, come to our region, see what the Pacific is facing and be moved to act," quote unquote. For developing nations, you see, the message to wealthy countries is quite clear. Promises are not enough. Communities are already on the move. Livelihoods are already at risk, and time is clearly running out. Unless the rich nations actually step up and act decisively, the human and environmental cost of climate change will only get worse, and it may be the smaller developing nations that will be forced to pay the price for these broken promises. Russian President Vladimir Putin is set to visit India this December. And ahead of that high-stakes summit, Moscow is turning the spotlight on one of the strongest symbols of the defense cooperation between the two sides, the BrahMos missile. In an exclusive conversation with WION, Babushkin hailed the BrahMos program as a missile with unlimited potential for tactical upgradation, calling it a pillar of the India-Russia strategic partnership. We'll tell you more about this. And now BrahMos is all set to get bigger, faster, and even deadlier. The BrahMos was designed with a range of 290 kilometers. Over time, its range has been extended to 450 kilometers. And now the next generation BrahMos is reportedly in the pipeline and boasts a range of up to 800 kilometers. Now, this new variant will be lighter and sleeker and will allow great mobility. The variant will be suitable for deployment on platforms like India's indigenous Tejas fighter jet, which will be able to carry 2 of these missiles simultaneously. Just to understand just how significant all of this really is, it's worth comparing the missile to Russia's own missile, which is another supersonic cruise missile that shares technological roots with BrahMos. In fact, while it is a formidable weapon in its own right, BrahMos has outpaced it in terms of global appeal and platform versatility. With a speed of Mach 3, sea-skimming capabilities, precision strike features, BrahMos is a proven arsenal during Operation Sindoor. In fact, beyond firepower, the missile is now turning into a strategic asset for India's economy and diplomacy. with the first export deal already signed with the Philippines for $375 million. Other countries also lining up. According to media reports, countries across Southeast Asia, West Asia, Africa, South America have expressed strong interest in acquiring the BrahMos. This growing export potential coming at a time when India is pushing to become a major global defense manufacturer. BrahMos could be the crown jewel of that push. As President Putin and Prime Minister Modi prepare to meet in December, BrahMos standing as a powerful symbol, and not just of military strength, but of decades of trust, technology transfer, also transformation. Moving on for now, Nepal is taking bold new steps to clean up the world's highest peak. Mount Everest is now at the center of a 5-year national strategy aimed at restoring its natural beauty and protecting fragile ecosystems from decades of pollution. The move following a Supreme Court directive, as melting glaciers and rising climbing traffic have exposed the long-buried waste, including human remains, across the Everest region. And experts are warning the growing garbage crisis is not just a visual blight, it's also a major threat to downstream communities and the environment overall. Under the Clean Mountain Strategy, the government basically plans to deploy a dedicated team of mountain rangers to manage the waste on the slopes, including at high altitude camps. Drones may also be used to retrieve the trash from the areas that are hard to access. The budget currently allocating 308 million Nepali rupees for the plan. But insiders are saying the actual cost may exceed 1 billion. Over the years, climbers, Sherpas, expedition teams have left behind oxygen canisters, ropes, plastic, food waste, even human waste. In just one spring season, in 2024, for example, more than 96 tons of garbage were removed from the mountain, with nearly 28 tons being human waste alone. To tackle the crisis, Nepal has raised the climbing fees and also introduced new rules like refundable garbage deposits and mandatory poop bags. Mountaineering is a major source of revenue for the country. It is home to 8 of the world's 10 tallest mountains, after all. Climbing fees brought in about $5.9 million just last year, with Everest accounting for more than 3/4 of that. But experts are saying enforcement and consistent policy are crucial. Without sustained action and funding, Everest may continue to symbolize not just human achievement, but also, unfortunately, environmental neglect in a way. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.